The enemy, which is located within the territory of Ukraine, is experiencing an aging of the contingent. The age indicator has increased. This was stated by the representative of the Operational Strategic Group of Forces, Khortytsia, Viktor Tregubov, on the air of Kiev 24, speaking about the current qualitative composition of the enemy's manpower. There are certain signs of both indiscipline and low morale, among other things, and there is a very harsh, inhumane punishment of people who simply refused to go directly into the assault. They have all of this, plus I want to note that there is a sign of the aging of their contingent, purely age-related. The average age of a fighter is growing precisely on the territory of our state, Tregubov said. At the same time, he noted that the enemy still has a large contingent. There are different units. According to Tregubov, the Russians are ready for an intensification of military clashes and still have the potential to build up their forces. He noted that against the backdrop of negotiations on a meeting in Turkey between the leaders of Ukraine and the Russian Federation, there is a high intensity of military clashes on the battlefield, and there are no signs that this will change in the near future. We can see that the Russians are ready for intensification, and they are already doing it in certain areas. About what already exists, we see that, for example, there is a specific increase in military clashes in the Pokrovsky direction and in the Novopavlovsky direction, and in principle, the Russians can build up their forces. They have the potential, Tregubov emphasized. As reported, People's Deputy of Ukraine, member of the Verkhovna Rada Committee on National Security, Defense and Intelligence, Fedor Venislavsky, recently stated that Russia is increasing the number of troops involved in the war against Ukraine. In particular, by the end of 2025, the Russian Federation intends to mobilize another 300 to 400,000 people. According to the People's Deputy, the plans of the Russians indicate that the aggressor intends to continue the war. At the same time, Russian dictator Vladimir Putin assures the world that he supports the establishment of a ceasefire. According to the Wall Street Journal, US President Donald Trump has complained to his advisors in private conversations in recent weeks that the Russian leader does not want to end the war against Ukraine. He also expressed surprise at some of Putin's military actions, including the bombing of areas where children are located. Notably, Trump earlier this year believed that Kiev would be harder to convince than Moscow to end the war. Recently, senior US administration officials have acknowledged that Russia remains the biggest obstacle.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on Thursday welcomed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky with an honor guard at the presidential palace in Ankara, ahead of planned Russia-Ukraine peace talks. According to Associated Press, Russian President Vladimir Putin didn't show up in Turkey for proposed direct talks with Zelensky, who was waiting for him in the capital Ankara after challenging the Kremlin leader to face-to-face discussions on ending their three-year-old war. With Putin absent, the Russian delegation was in Istanbul, and it wasn't clear whether the sides would meet for their first such talks since March 2022, following Russia's full-scale invasion of its neighbor the previous month. Zelensky said the Russian delegation appeared to be merely decorative. The war has killed tens of thousands of soldiers on both sides and more than 12,000 Ukrainian civilians, according to the UN, and continues along the roughly 1,000-kilometer front line. Russian forces are preparing a fresh military offensive, Ukrainian government and Western military analysts say.
How are you?
Thank you. How are you?
Good.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Thursday accused Russia of sending a decorative-level delegation to peace talks in Turkey. According to Associated Press, he said Ukraine's delegation was made up of the most senior officials to take any decisions that might lead to the expected and just peace. He was speaking at Ankara airport shortly after his arrival for talks with Turkey's president. Peace talks between Ukrainian and Russian delegations are scheduled to start in Ankara on Thursday. Zelensky has said he's willing to talk face-to-face with President Vladimir Putin. The Russian leader, however, is not expected to attend the talks, and neither is his foreign minister.
Just one. Доброго дня, вітаю.
Microphone olan var mı? Which one? This one.
Багається у нас на найвищому рівні Міністерство закордонних справ, мій офіс, військові, наші розвідки, представники всіх розвідок, до речі. І для того, щоб приймати будь-які рішення, які можуть привести до очікуваного справедливого миру. Що стосується високого рівня зустрічі, ми почнемо з зустрічі з президентом Ердоганом, з усією широкою делегацією Туреччини. Ми в контакті з американською стороною, а вони, думаю, також будуть, до речі, на високому рівні. Подивимось, але рівень русських поки що мені офіційно невідомий, але із того, що ми бачимо, більше схоже на бутафорський рівень. Ми подумаємо, що будемо робити, які будуть наші кроки після розмови з президентом Ердоганом. Я думаю, у нас буде кілька годин для важливої розмови, дуже важливих рішень. Ми повинні розуміти, що за рівень російської делегації, який у них мандат, чи спроможні вони хоч щось самі приймати. Тому що нам всім відомо, хто в Росії приймає рішення.